Welcome back to the channel. My name's Adrian, and as it's October and Halloween is at the end of the month, I thought I'd carry on doing a few more spooky, independent books. Today I'm going to be taking a look at Wytchborg, which, as you can imagine, is a witch Mörk Borg world, and it's set in one of those worlds that I really like. It's early 17th century Britain, set in, well, the times of the English Civil War, which for me is very reminiscent of the world that Solomon Kane is in, and very kind of reminds me of Warcraft fantasy role-playing, that sort of dark, gritty, the pointy hats, you know, the Solomon Kane hats with the flintlock pistols and the rapiers. It's got this in it, and it's Halloween, so go and play. If you're going to play spooky games and you're a big fan of the Mörk Borg worlds, I think you should stick around and watch this. As I do with all these videos, let's just show you initially where you can pick it up. So it is available on TTRPG. Currently it is PDF only, which is what's that, $11.94, so that's probably about $15 US. If you are going to pick this up, I will put my affiliate link down in the video description, so please do consider using that, because any money generated on that, I'll just put it back into buying more things for the channel. So it is written here by Black Engine Studios, which actually did, it reminds me, as soon as I saw this, I was like, yeah, Cowborg, which I really apologise that I haven't bought Cowborg out as a review video. So it's something I'm going to aim to do definitely for November. And as you can imagine, Cowborg, cowboys. So, and I do love a good Western. So get back to Wytchborg. Wytchborg is a grim, dark horror TTRPG set in the witch-finding frenzy of the English Civil War. And this will just give you an idea of the artwork. It's dark and grim. It's Mörk Borg, but, well, Mörk Borg was obviously very yellow. This is very black, white and red, which I think is a really good art set to go for. It's going to include, you're going to include a character sheet as well within this. So if you get it, for full disclosure, I have been sent this copy. I haven't been asked to review it. It was just like, yeah, I know, you love Cowborg. Do you fancy a copy of Wytchborg? And, as I always say, only a fool says no to a free book. But yeah, I haven't been asked to review this. I'm reviewing this because it's witches, it's Mörk Borg, and it's the English Civil War with a dark, nasty twist. I'm not saying the English Civil War wasn't a dark, nasty time either, but yeah, let's get into the art style on the front cover. So we've got this really weird mutated creature here. And what I really like about this is the fact it's got the yellow eyes, which it's not a biggie here for me. But it's like I was saying, when you look at certain art styles that use a lot of black and white and then they just put a little bit of stranger colour, it really, I don't know, it's something that I really do enjoy looking at. Okay, so say the book itself comes in at 98 pages. It said 88 on TTRPG, so, but I'm assuming obviously this is the covers and stuff. So Wytchborg is an independent production. It's from Black Engine Studios. I don't normally talk about who the book is for, but this does say it's for Aussie, so I'm going to read out that dedication because, well, it's been a sad year, hasn't it? Contents, sadly not hyperlinked. And more sadly, and I'm going to start with a double negative here, not hyperlinked, not a massive thing, but on a PDF, I do think you should take the time to hyperlink. More importantly, the font is horrid for a dyslexic. And I think other people might think this is just me being pedantic. Maybe, maybe not. But we're going to get into the introduction and then getting. This actually says setting. That's an S. And for me, I do criticise this quite a lot in a variety of books. I want to be able to read letters just as easily as I can. I don't need my brain. My brain's already struggling with reading letters as it is, but then having to sort of work out exactly what some of the letters are in addition to that, I do find a little bit annoying. But obviously people are free to choose whatever font, and I guess I'm okay to criticise it if I don't like it. You're then going to find, what you may find on the cadaver, which is, it's basically a loot table. We've got some magical artifacts. So this standard sort of Mörk Borg random tables coming in. Weather tables, I'm terrible at, I talk about this in a lot of videos, I'm terrible about changing weather as a games master. So I like the fact it's front and centre. We've got some names, then a map of the UK, character creation, introduction is a big chunk of the book, and then we're going to get into optional rules. So one of the big things that you do find with Mörk Borg and Mörk Borg games is I personally find them incredibly light. I think they're too light for me, which is why I do like optional rules for these books, because it makes it a little bit deeper. It doesn't really change the rules in this game, but what it does is it doesn't change the rules, but it brings in a few new rules, but new character classes and things like that. And then we're going to get into beasts, random tables, and then we do get a adventure at the start, which I always love the fact that, if you are going to create something in a new and unique world, put an adventure in so that at least the games master understand what you're trying to achieve, but the players also get it. So here we've got the introduction and setting, which is a bleak horror, folk horror tabletop RPG set in the mid-1960s, 1600s. So it's about sort of 40 years after the sort of Solomon Kane books were written, but it's very much the same sort of era, if that makes sense. And again, looking at the artwork, black and white with a splot of red here. I'm sure splot isn't the right word to use. But yeah, this is going to take you throughout the whole of Britain in here. It's the time of the Puritans, which, if you're not aware of English history, effectively we got rid of Christmas and joy and fun, and it was a time of persecution for anyone that smiled. Not quite as bad as that, but yeah, it was a very, very weird, dark time in British history. So, but this just really ramps it up. In a time of black powder, muskets, and it's coming towards the end of that sort of chivalry fighting, sword fighting stage, because of muskets were here. So what may you find on Cadavers? We've got a D20 table here, so we're going to get things like blooded magistrate seals, or maybe some playing cards, missing the ace of spades typically. Magical artifacts, a D20 of magical artifacts. Again, I'm going to have a slight grumble on fonts used, because I'm not a massive fan of books where they especially change fonts on the same page. There's 4 or 5 different fonts here, and it makes my head hurt. It's good content, but I'm taking extra time that I don't want to be spending trying to translate letters. But I'll try not to bring that up again throughout the rest of the book. We have got a D10 of strange weather, so we're going to get things like a swarm of locusts and the impact that will have, as well as you could end up with hail in here. Random names, first names and second names, always really helpful because names are difficult. Map of Britain, if you're unsure of what Britain looks like. And then we're going to get into a little bit about the world. So it's an unquiet land with the civil wars tears into the country asunder. Witch-finding inquisitors prowl the towns of the forsaken villages, their zeal as sharp as their blades. I like witch hunters as a character class, especially in Warhammer. But I kind of get the impression, well, the witch hunters are the bad people in this, because we're playing, well, we'll come on to that if we want to go to the unique character classes. We've then got 5 different pages here, just detailing a little bit of what's going on in the world. So just how horrific it is to hang out in the marches, and the sort of creatures you're going to get out there, how the villages are, in the day it's quite grim, but at night it becomes a place of dread with lanterns flickering. The forests you can then go into, and then you then get the fallow fields, which who's going to want to stay on into the fields at night where there's absolutely no light? And then finally we get the dreaded moors, which do have ancient standing stones that rise. You only got to think American Wealth in London, and there's a good reason not to go on the moors. And actually this book does have werewolves in, which definitely don't go on the moors. Character creation. We're going to get 4 things to do. Character creation. Do your starting equipment, randomize your weapons and armor, roll your abilities, and then roll your hit points. So this is just the basic character creation. Then if you want to go to the optional rules, you're going to choose or randomly roll your character class out of 10 classes, and then roll some additional character details here. So initially you're going to roll a d6, where you got 2d6 times 10 for shillings, which is your initial money, and you're going to have a water skin and a d4's worth of stale bread and cheese. Beyond that, everything else is going to be random rolled. So we're going to get a d6 for the type of bag or possibly donkey that you might be able to carry in things, a random item, and then some sort of more magical items here, in essence, like healings, elixirs, and things like that. Weapons, we've got a d6 table for melee weapons, and then a D4 table for ranged weapons here. And we're going to get things that you'd expect to see, like a pike or rapier and crossbow, and then hopefully you might get a flintlock musket. But the problem is you're going to need ammo if you do that. Things you can buy, so you've got some equipment. You are going to start off with some shillings here, and we've got some costed things you can buy, like armor. I'd probably get armor if you can afford it. Some spell scrolls, because there is magic in this world. Some additional ranged weapons and equipment they're going to get there. When it comes to statistics in the game, so if you've never played a Mörk Borg game, you're going to want to pay a little bit of attention to this. If you've played lots of Mörk Borg games, this is going to be, well, it's incredibly simple, and you're going to understand what's going on. But we've got 5 abilities in this. No skills. Everything comes down to abilities. We've got agility, presence, strength, and toughness, which should sound very familiar. Agility is like your dexterity, your ability to defend and dodge. Presence is perceiving, your personality. Actually, your intelligence, charms, it's your catch-all ability, because it also does shooting or ranged weapons. Strength is crushing, lifting, grappling, and punching and striking. Toughness is your ability to withhold damage and take damage. And then faith will do all your spells and incantations and resist unholy. To create your attributes, your abilities in this game, you're going to roll 3d6, add them up, and you can see a table from here. So if you end up with a total of 7 to 8, you're going to get -1. If you get a total of 15 to 16, you're going to get +2. And the average on 3d6 is around about 10 to 10.5, somewhere around there. So most rolls you're not going to have any addition to, which does make these games quite difficult, because the average DC check, everything is player facing, so the games master doesn't really roll in this game, but you're normally looking for at least a 12 to do a standard check to do anything. Okay, carrying capacity is going to be based on your strength plus your size, and then you can go 5 spaces around. All the movement rules are here, so whether you're going to be crawling or running, you can rest, and when you rest you're going to get some of your hit points back. A full night's sleep is going to give you a D6 back. Taking a breath is going to give you a D4. So there's no real guarantee you're going to get all your hit points back in here. Your hit points, you're going to get a D8 plus your toughness, and obviously you might have a minus to that if you're, a minus on your toughness ability. Hit points, as you lose hit points, if you go to 0 hit points, you're going to roll a D4 here, and then you can either hemorrhage and take a while to come back, fall unconscious. You can end up broken. If you roll a 4 on that, you are dead. If you go into negative hit points, you are just dead. Initiative is simple, standard Mörk Borg rules, I think. Roll D6 are 1 to 3. The enemies go first, 4, 5, and 6. The players go first. You can alternatively do it off agility if you want to. When it comes to attacking, be it melee or range, you're rolling your D20 and adding either your strength or presence, respectively, to try and get a 12. Normally a 12, there might be a plus or minus to that. When you're defending, you as the player are rolling against your agility. And again, you're trying to add your agility bonus, trying to get 12 or more to dodge out the way. So they automatically hit, you're technically rolling your agility to sort of dodge and get out of the way. And then obviously if they hit, they roll damage. And it does say here that most enemies will only do 1 attack per round. There may be some different enemies towards the end. 20 is always going to do a crit and will do different things, additional damage, reduce armor. A 1 is always going to be a fumble, and if you fumble the dodge roll, they're going to do a second hit to you. Reaction rolls, as you meet a potential enemy, I should say, adversary, is that the best way to put it? You're going to roll 2d20 if they're not automatically going to attack you or automatically friendly. And there's a random chance they might either try to kill you or be helpful, and as creatures take hit points or the leader is killed, they're going to do a morale check and they may actually just run off. We've got the rules here for getting better. There are some magic items in here as well. So yeah, you not automatically going to heal, but obviously sometimes you're going to want to just sit and rest or sleep it off is probably the best way if your opponents will allow you to do that. There is magic in here. We've got 20 different magic spells, and to do your magic spells, you are rolling a d20, adding your faith, and you're just looking to get 12 again or more. So we give you an idea of a couple of spells. Let's do Creeping Death. The air grows thick with pestilence, the foul blight spreads. All living creatures within 30 are affected, so that should be 30 feet. Collectively losing 4d10 hit points split amongst them. So I assume that would be equally, or does the games master or the player decide? I think the player should decide on that one. Trust me to pick one that's not straight off easy to sort. And then let's go with the 20 here. Your hand becomes necrotic. On a touch, deal 1d6 damage to living tissue. So that's easy enough to do. So obviously if you fail the roll, the spell doesn't work. But in the additional rules, there is a sort of a box table. Incantations, I don't think that's right, they're sort of holy. Let's go with blessings in a way, and there's a D8 of these, so I'm not going to spoil any of them in there, and they seem to be a little bit more powerful than the spells. We've got some optional rules here. This feels very much out of, I think it was Wytch Borg that had the boons. So every player is going to gain a D2 boons a day. So if you use them, that's how often they're going to come back. And you can use these to do additional things like reroll dice, reduce damage, neutralize crits from source. So it's not quite exactly the same as Wytch Borg. Probably should have said this section is the optional rules, which I think actually get rid of the optional rules. Just keep them as rules. So we've got some D20 of things that's particular to the player characters. We've then got appearance, personality, clothing, their drive, and insanities. Arcane catastrophes, this is what's going to happen when these spells, you don't actually cast the spell. Again, there's only 10. I say only 10, I don't mean like that, but what I don't want to do is spoil them. Then get some optional rules for horse riding and horseback fighting, which obviously around the time of the cavalry and stuff is something that would come up a lot. And then we've got the 10, I was going to say fairly unique classes. Just say here, roll a d10. It does also say that at the start of the book you can pick. Personally, I'd roll, but it's up to players. Sometimes players are the specific they want. Don't show them, and then they can just roll and have what they're given. But on each of these classes, so we've got a witch finder, we've got a roundhead deserter, mercenary, alchemist in here. I think only 3 of them do spells, which is standard, which is off the faith, a gravedigger, a ranter's mystic, a vagabond, cavalier apostate, and then the crownless pretender. So we'll just do the crownless pretender. So if you're going to be a crownless defender, as opposed to going 3d6 down all the abilities, what we've got here is they're deluded. So they roll 3d6 plus 2 for their faith and presence, but they're going to roll 3d6 minus 2 for strength. All of the classes will have something similar. They will have a d6 for their origin, and for example, this one is that if they rolled a 1 on that, there'd be a royal bastard. It will give them beginning coins, which will be more or less than if they don't have a class. I get a special ability here on a d4, so you're going to lose some hit points to gain additional equipment, some potentially better stats, and one worse one, and a special ability as well. We're next going to get into the beastry section, which I like because every creature in here has got its own artwork, and I love the fact that that the time has been taken in here. There aren't a huge amount in here, so there's what I thought was just about 10-15 different creatures, something like that. So I'm hoping we will see more, but this is good to get you going. So let's just pick on the werewolf here. So this is what I mean. Oh, they've got no morale. They are not running off. They're going to fight to the death. So these are going to come with 10 hit points, say no morale, so they aren't running anywhere. They're going to roll a d4 if you do hit them, and when they go to hit you, obviously you're going to make your agility check to get out of the way. If not, they're going to do a d6 damage with their claws and a bite damage of a d6, and potentially, if you fail the toughness of 14, you may be cursed. We know what the sort of curse that werewolves have. They also regenerate 2 hit points per round, unless burnt by fire or silver. So games masters, they're going to be good fun to murder all the players, I'd imagine. We've then got a D12 table here of a reason to go adventuring. We've got who contacted you to go adventuring, and then a D100 table of adventuring ideas. And if that's not enough, we've got a D20 table here of NPCs. So we've got Henry the Quill, for example, a swallow-faced scribe who spends his time writing wills and death notices before the subject has perished. He does not predict, he merely records what is already written. So that's a nice adventure hook just in there, giving you an idea. And then finally we get Jabal's Tower, which is a hex crawl. It's a little bit of a small one. I think with the adventure, I reckon this is going to probably take you an evening or two to get through. So I'm not going to spoil it because the hex itself, each hex is 20 minutes to travel. So you're going to get through this area quite quickly. The only bit I don't overly like is this bear pit, because humans were bastards in the old days. I'm not saying that they're not great nowadays, but this whole bear fighting and stuff, it just used to annoy me. I wasn't around that then, but when you're reading things in history that people do, it's like, why hurt animals? But I like the plot for this. So basically, you were bound for the gallows, sentenced to hang for your crimes that you swear you didn't commit, and then they basically go, do you know what? Actually, the royal forces, if you'll never come in Norfolk again. Plus, we're actually going to give you 100 shillings, though. But you need to go and search out and deal with Jubal Early, who was a former colonel, who is known to be a beast in man's skin. That his men go around burning towns and butchering children. So, yeah, you should have died, and you can decide whether you want to be a good or bad person, and whether you actually really did it. But I kind of like these ones. Is here you go, go off and do this, and then never come back, which means you can deal with it how you want. But each of the hexes that are in here, they've got descriptors for what's going on. They've got, in, like, for example, this church here. It's got the descriptor of the outside of the church, what's going on, the interior of the church, and then what they're going to fight. So I was saying, when the beastry section's a little short, it doesn't really matter because there's a chunk of additional stuff in here. But yeah, I said I don't want to spoil it. It reads quite interesting. We have got some random events on some of the other hexes as well that's going to go on, and that is a flat D20, so there's no curve on this, as you'd expect from a Mörk Borg adventure, which is going to give you a lot more random things as you're going around and doing and discovering stuff. And then finally, we get the sort of back couple of pages, and then it's just going to remind you here, a grim, dark horror RPG, TTRPG set during the witch frenzy of the English Civil War. Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live, unless you're playing the witch, obviously. So that's the book. I really like it, other than the font. I don't like the font. Okay, I say I don't like the font is the wrong thing to say. I don't like some of the fonts, because as you can see, I can read the book. I just find it, just please stop doing the nice italic writing and just keep things simple for people like me. The thing I did notice as I was going through the book, though, was there's nothing for experience, which is strange for a Mörk Borg type book, because you normally get something, and I couldn't see it. I went back forwards a few times, so I don't know whether that's deliberate or whether this is going to be expanded on at some stage. But it's a really, I say nice is the wrong word to say here, because it's bloody horrid. The world is grim, nasty and dark, but 10 classes, which is a lot. You normally only get 6 in books like this. You may get out to 8. And, I did cover The Witch recently for Shadow Dark, which is a lot more spells focused in this. This really does feel like a Mörk Borg type book. It's got that flavour of Pirate Borg because of the boons, which is my favourite. I can't remember, because it's been a long time since I actually played Mörk Borg, and I only played Mörk Borg once, and Pirate is my sort of go-to Borg, and I know that has the boons. I can't remember. I'm sure someone will correct me and go, yeah, Mörk Borg has the boons in for all of them. But theme-wise, I like Black Powder and Brimstone. I really do. But I think one of the problems with the Black Powder and Brimstone rule book is it's so beautiful and nice to look at. It doesn't give me that grim dark setting as much as I want to. Where this is just the art is nasty. It just feels. I know I talk about Warhammer Fantasy role playing a lot because I love the world. This really feels like Warhammer to me. Obviously very human centric, Warhammer, obviously. But it's got that. I always talk about Warhammer being very much Solomon Kane. You know, if you want inspiration for Warhammer, actually ignore the end, the last 10 minutes of the Solomon Kane movie from about 2010, I think it was, somewhere around there. But the look and feel of that mud, that darkness, that constant raining and drivel, and no one wants to live in that sort of world. That looks how this looks to me, and very much feels. And well, it's even worse actually once you get into those weather rolls, just what's going on. But I really like it. I really like it. I need to see what's going to come out next, because say that the bits that make me sad is there's no experience, there's nowhere to take anything, because once you've done that adventure, you've got a lot of adventure hooks in there. So you've got that D100 table in there. But I think what might annoy a few people is, I know we don't play board games for experience in a campaign setting, but I think we always like the idea that we can go on and do something. And I know it's very simple, and I could just take the Mörk Borg or Pirate Borg expansion rules, which is what I do if I was going to play more of this. But I just want to see where this goes now. You know, are we going to get more adventures and stuff? Because it's great. It's a great world. And there is an adventure. There's loads of adventure hooks in here. Say 10 classes, which is, for me, feels huge. You don't really see many books, like Borg books, with 10 classes. And it's a world that's quite personal to me, because it's a time frame that I like. And, you know, it's set here in the UK. So if you like witches and Mörk Borg worlds, I think this one's for you. So if you've enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe to the channel. As ever, I'll see you on the next one. Thank you for watching.